Time now for our takeaways from the Spurs loss to the Los Angeles Lakers, 114-104, and we're coming to you from the AT&T Center, where David, it started off okay for San Antonio, but obviously did not end well.
No, it didn't end well. But, it appears that they've turned a corner. I'm not sure how far around that corner they've gotten, but they've turned a corner. So 3 takeaways from tonight's game. One thing that pops out after the game, pretty pleased with the direction they're headed. Another thing is Derrick White back in the starting lineup. It's the first time we've got to talk to him since he was in the starting lineup, and that seems to have stabilized things the last couple of games. So we'll have to see how that progresses. And also, they're so frustrated when it comes to the fourth quarter, and for some reason they're making some critical mistakes in the fourth quarter and down the stretch that's costing them a lot of these games.
Yeah, so let's hear from the guys on that first takeaway about them starting off and being off on the right track now.
I thought we did a lot of good things. Sometimes we get in our own way. A couple of bad transitions, gave up a couple threes in a row. LeBron had a good stretch there. But all in all, I was pleased with a lot of things that I saw. We're on the right track.
Granted, everybody hates losing. Sucks to lose. But with that, you got to be resilient.
So again, one of the reasons why they seem to be on that right track, headed in the right direction, is Pop has changed up the starting lineup. Jakob Poeltl is back in the starting lineup, but maybe even more important, Derrick White is back in the starting lineup. If you remember, he had a lot of time in that starting position as the point guard last year down the stretch and into the playoffs, and it seems to bring a little comfort to all these guys in that starting role.
I think that for DeJounte Murray, it's also a learning experience here. So this is kind of the process that he needs to kind of go through here. Obviously, Derrick a lot more comfortable with the starting unit, and it showed because past 2 games, Knicks, this one, they've looked pretty good coming out of the gate.
I want to say I'm more comfortable. I mean, we did do it last year, and especially down the stretch, but I'm comfortable with the bench unit as well, so wherever coach throws me, I'm good.
So we've talked about some of the positive things from the Spurs loss to the Lakers, and the negative thing here, the fourth quarter execution, late game execution, those mistakes are still killing this team.
We'll end on the sour note. Start feeling good about ourselves, but this is something that they really have to work on. They have to put 4 quarters together, and they've been suffering in the fourth quarter with mental mistakes, if anything. They didn't get back on defense a couple of times. They let some easy transition buckets go. They also let a couple of guys wide open. One, LeBron James, hit a couple of threes there in the fourth quarter. So they're just making little mistakes, but those little mistakes are adding up to basically losses.
It's kind of a broken record. We just need to be better executing in the games, mostly defensively, but also offensively.
If we can put a full game together and close out games, I think we'll be all right. I think that's been our biggest problem, is closing out games, not being in games.
So the Spurs drop to 6-12. They get the Minnesota Timberwolves coming up this Wednesday here at the AT&T Center, and this will be an interesting game. The Spurs played well in Minnesota, one of these many losses that we've seen. So what do you expect to see out of them coming up here?
I expect to see more of the same, but better. If that makes any sense. You've got LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. They can't let their heads hang. They know that there's some young guys on this team, and they're going through a tough stretch, and they got to keep their heads up, and that's what they've talked about after the Laker game. And I think if they can play like they have been the last 2 games, they're going to start winning some of these games, and I think Minnesota would be a good time to start.
Yeah, a lot of frustration. This does not feel like a 6-12 team, but here we are. So before we leave you guys, David, your final words?
Go Spurs, go.